students. It's Mr. Sargent here with your day 140 recap video for ELA and for science. Now in ELA today, we're just going to be talking about the different assessments that we did and the different ways to check our understanding for our story of the week, separate is never equal. And in science today, we're going to do a lab focusing on reducing, reusing, recycling, but also one that we're going to be doing next week at our science fair to help celebrate Earth Day. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and let's learn. The first thing that we did today was we discussed the story. We just reviewed the entire story, the entire scape chart. We went through the setting, we went through the characters, the action, the problem, and even the ending. And with our focus being problem this week, our first assessment was a discussion assessment where you got into breakout rooms and you worked on this activity. Now, this activity is a quick and easy writing activity in which you get to choose one problem to try to solve. Now, if you remember from the story, there are a lot of problems, aren't there, ladies and gentlemen? All you have to do is choose one of the three that I put on this activity and see how they solved it in the book and write down what you would do to solve it. And if you want to do this activity, you can find it in the link below. I've also sent it to you on Class Dojo and Google Classroom. After we did that, well, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember, on Wednesday, we first took our quiz on separate is never equal. And then we discussed a lot. We did the recap videos. We looked at the read-along. Today, you get to retake the quiz. You can find that link, once again, in the description below. I say that a lot, don't I? But we can find it in the description below, and I will also send it to you, Class Dojo and Google Classroom. And finally, we did our weekly spelling test, which, ladies and gentlemen, I am super proud of all of the work that you are putting in. I saw some scores today that were truly incredible. But if you didn't get a chance to work on it, or if you didn't get a chance to finish it, once again, you go ahead and say it. Where can you find the link? Right there. But you can also find it on Class Dojo and Google Classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions about any of these assessments, please reach out to me and I'll help when I can. Now, in science today, before I get all geared up, we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose of why we're doing today's lab. Now, as you know, next week is not just our science fair on Thursday, but on Thursday is also a special day. Now, this special day is called Earth Day. Now, Earth Day is a day that we use to celebrate, well, the planet that we live on. The planet that gives us air, that gives us food, that gives us a home. And we want to do everything we can to protect it. So throughout this week and even last week, we've talked about reducing, reusing, recycling. And today's lab does just that. We get to reduce, reuse, and recycle all at the same time. Plus, you get to help the environment by, well, planting a plant, which, gives us oxygen, gives us life. So now that I've talked about the purpose, let's go ahead and, there we go. You can't do a science project without the right gear, lab coat, and eye protection. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create something called a terrarium. Now, if you've never heard of terrarium before, think about the first the first sound in terrarium, and that's terra. Well, terra is Latin for earth. So we know its cousin, the aquarium, which is filled with water. But today what we're going to do is we're going to create a terrarium. It's going to be something filled with earth. Now, we have earth everywhere, but we're going to be using soil today. Now, some other materials that we're going to be using, we're going to be using some stone, we're going to be using some seeds, and the secret material of the day. Something that we would normally just throw away or toss in our recycling bin, and that is a plastic bottle. Ladies and gentlemen, millions of these are thrown away every single day. So today what we're going to be doing, the purpose of our experiment is to find another use for a plastic bottle like this. So after purpose, we got question. Now the question I have is, using this plastic bottle and some of the materials that I have present, is it possible to create a terrarium, and not just an ordinary terrarium? Create a self-watering terrarium. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be growing a plant in here, but I have a confession to make. Mr. Sargent often forgets to do something when it deals with plants. Now, I have tried for years to grow plants, to grow a garden, to grow all this, and sometimes it works, but a lot of times when I fail, it's because I forgot to do something, and that's watering it. Now, as we know, plants, they need soil, sunlight, and water to grow, don't they? But sometimes life gets busy. I've been talking to all of you. Some of you are on vacation already. Some of you are out there celebrating your birthdays. Some of you are doing this. Some of you are doing that. When do we ever have time to water our plants? So for today's lab, the question is, can I create a terrarium that waters itself? Well, I think we can. So the materials that you're going to need to do this, and by the way, if you choose not to do this right now, it's okay. If you come to our science fair next Thursday, everybody that comes is going to have an opportunity to create one of these. Now, you're going to need a plastic bottle. You're going to need some stones. You're going to need some dirt or some soil. It's not just dirt, it's soil. You're going to need a little bit of water, and you're definitely going to need some parent help. And the two secret ingredients, the two secret materials are going to be a plastic bag and a rubber band. So ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and start some science labbing. So ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and start our experiment. Now, as you know, after we do the purpose, after we do the question, after we do our hypothesis, which I think I did, if not, my hypothesis is absolutely I can create this, because ladies and gentlemen, little secret, most of the experiments I post here on my videos, I've done before. And as much as I say it's okay to fail on experiments, and it is, when I share it with you, I want to make sure that it works. So my hypothesis, I already know it's going to work. Materials, we already went through. So now let's get to the experiment. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do is, well, if you have a bottle like this, we're going to need to cut the top off. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is definitely when we get parent permission. But I have the power of YouTube and the power of magic. So in 3, 2, 1, boop. There we go. So now we have an open top for our bottle and for our terrarium to grow. So now that we have our bottle, what we're going to do is, well, we need something strong at the base. Now, if we know anything about plants and anything about planters, sometimes they tip over, don't they? So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our stones here and put it at the bottom of our bottle, like that. Now we're going to need a little bit more than that because we want it with enough weight at the bottom. Now, there's another reason why we put stones here too. Now, after we add the water, what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to need a place to pool. It's going to need a place to sit and eventually evaporate. The stones give it a great area to sit and begin the whole water cycle process. So we have our base here, and our next step is to take our incredible and wonderful rich soil that we have right here and add it to our terrarium. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, it may get a little messy here and there, and like I said thousands of times, sometimes science is messy, and that is okay. This is also why you get parent permission and parent help to do a lot of these experiments. So I'm going to put the soil in. Now, I'm not going to fill it all the way to the top, and there's a reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, because it's one of our next steps. So we have our soil in, and I'm going to press it down just a little bit. The next thing we need, well, all plants start with something, don't they? All plants start with a seed. So we need some seeds. Now, the interesting thing about seeds, ladies and gentlemen, is they all look different based on, well, what we're trying to plant. Now, a vegetable seed will look different than a flower seed. Now, what we're going to plant today is a Jolly Jester marigold. Look how cool that's going to look. Kind of looks like an umbrella, doesn't it? And if we take a look at the seed, let me pour some out right here so you can see. The seeds look very interesting. The seeds are long and thin, aren't they? Now, what we need to do is we need to plant these seeds into the soil. So I could dig in here, but here's what I'm going to do. I saved some of my soil before, didn't I? I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to place these in carefully into my soil. And then I'm going to take some of the soil that I had left over right here, and I'm going to place it on the top. And now our seed is planted. It is buried. It is in the ground, because a seed won't grow unless it is buried, because you got to give it space to grow the roots inside. So I could be done right now, but if I leave this opening wide open, what's going to happen to the water that I put in? You're right, it's going to evaporate. So let's figure out how we can create a self-watering terrarium here. So the next step of my experiment is to just go pour a little bit of water in here. You don't want to drown it or anything like that. And if you notice, it's going to bubble up because that is the water seeping through the soil and mixing in. We want it a little bit wet. We don't want it drowning or anything like that, but we want a little bit wet, because the water that we put in here now is the water that's going to stay in here until we finish the next step. Okay? So now if you notice, it has dried up and we have a nice damp soil for the seeds to grow. So I told you before, we have a secret material. The secret material is a plastic Ziploc bag. Now, we talked earlier in the week how Ziploc bags get caught up in the recycling bin and kind of mess up the machines. So usually Ziploc bags get thrown away. But we're all about reducing, reusing, and recycling here. So what we're going to do is we're going to reuse this plastic bag. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am just going to cut it just like so. All right? Now, the great thing about these bags, ladies and gentlemen, well, we can see through them. Now, why is that a good thing? Well, if we can see through them, then the sun can get through, can't it? So if we place this on the top of our container, the sun will be able to get through and help the plant grow. And if we put the plastic on the top, will the water be able to get out? Well, let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place this plastic right on the top, and then I'm going to get the other ingredient, the rubber band, and I'm going to place the rubber band around the cup and from the rubber band or the bottle. No air should escape, because if air is escaping, then guess what else is escaping? You're right, the water. So if it doesn't work the first time, like that's wide open, we take our other piece and we do this. We take the rubber band off and we cross it over, double layering it just like that. And then by putting the rubber band over it, we're going to be able to seal it up even better, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know about you, this is looking pretty awesome. So now we have a seal at the top, and that water will not be able to escape. So what's our next step? Well, we got to put it in the sun. Now, this is one that I had in the sun for quite a while. This is done by Mitchell. This is going to be Mitchell's Science Fair project. And if you look, the water is already creating condensation at the top of the bottle and the plastic. So what's eventually going to happen? Well, all that water is going to build up on the top here and eventually go back down into the soil. Now, the great thing about the water cycle is it keeps repeating. So time after time after time, if we leave this plastic covering on top of this, it'll keep watering itself. Ladies and gentlemen, did we just create a self-watering terrarium? Yes, we did. Did we just recycle old bottles that we would normally throw away? Yes, we did. Will we eventually have some incredible flowers and some incredible plants that we can plant somewhere else? Yes, we did. Ladies and gentlemen, I consider this a success. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, next week at our science fair, we're going to be doing this experiment live and in person. So hopefully you show up and you will be able to go home with your own flower and terrarium. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for today. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching, each and every one of you for being in class today. You are awesome. And like I said, if you missed class today, all of the assessments and all the work that you missed are in the description below. Feel free to check them out. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have an incredible weekend. And until Monday, have a good one.